Hi, and welcome to this short screencast on week 2. We're in ECE 220, and we're talking about curriculum methods and techniques. So our objectives for this session are to identify factors affecting the lesson planning of early childhood curriculum, identify characteristics of developmentally and culturally appropriate learning experiences for all children ages birth to 8 years, and define developmentally appropriate child outcomes. So the first thing that I think needs to be defined and talked about is what is developmentally appropriate practice. Oftentimes in the field, you'll hear this referred to as DAP. So what is DAP? What is developmentally appropriate practice? Developmentally appropriate practice is teaching that is tuned to children's ages, experiences, abilities, interests, and that helps them attain challenging and achievable goals. So this is really knowing the children in your care and teaching to meet their needs, teaching so that you are meeting and have an understanding of their ideas, teaching so that you are following their lead, teaching them so that you are giving them appropriate experiences that help them grow. And it's really thinking about the whole child, because we know that children develop within the context of relationships, and also children develop all areas of development, interrelate to one another, and support each other. So what does developmentally appropriate practice look like in a classroom? So for you as the teacher, this means that you are valuing play. You're understanding the importance of play. You're understanding how play works to develop children in all areas of development, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes. It's also this idea of letting children be children. So having realistic expectations, this goes back to even if those of you have taken guidance strategies, and really understanding what's appropriate for children to be doing, such as not sitting in a desk for an hour at a time or not sitting in circle time for 45 minutes. It's really this idea of allowing children to be children. This also means that you're meeting children where they are and that you are valuing the child as an individual, so that you really are understanding who they are as a person, and you're designing learning experiences that are going to support them on a continuum so that there's still growth, but in recognizing that every child comes and is at a different place in terms of development. It's also understanding what is age appropriate, and this goes back to letting children be children. So understanding what should be age appropriate for a toddler that differs from a preschooler, which is going to differ from an older preschooler than a younger preschooler. And then also understanding the social and cultural context in which children live in and using that to your benefit. So developmentally appropriate practice is something that we should all have a firm understanding of as individuals who work in the field of early childhood education, and I'm going to provide you some additional resources on what that looks like within this module. So as I stated on the last slide, play is extremely important. Play is a huge part of early childhood, and play is something that should be occurring in all early childhood classrooms across the board. And the reason why is that play develops children really in all areas of development. This picture right here is a great picture that talks about some of the benefits of play in terms of physical development, cognitive development, emotional development, and social development. The important thing to note about these areas of development is that they overlap and they interrelate. So you could be doing an activity that is meant to be a fine motor activity. Let's talk about like beating. But really that activity could hit on so much more. So in terms of cognitive development, if they're doing beating and you start to incorporate patterning, you're meeting cognitive development. If you're doing beating and you are turning it into a small group experience where peers are involved, you're working on social development. If you're doing beating and you're really being intentional about helping children with their self-regulation skills of being able to attune and pay attention so they can do the activity, you are supporting them with emotional development. So that one activity of just doing beating, which is a fun and engaging activity to children, is going to support their development in all of these ways. And it still is playing. It's playing as long as it's a child-guided and child-directed activity. And we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like as we move through this course. So, how does developmentally appropriate practice and play relate to planning? And why should you be planning in early childhood classrooms? And how do you plan in early childhood classrooms? First and foremost, young children, you need to have a firm understanding of the young children in your care and how they learn in order to plan appropriately for them. Secondly, when you are being focused on the learner-centered and integrated approaches, when you're using emergent curriculum and you're including all the developmental domains and you're understanding how they intersect, you are supporting young children in their growth and their development. So when you understand developmentally appropriate practice and you understand play, you actually are using that as the base and the foundation for any curriculum that you plan. But you have to know the children in your care. You have to use observation to support what it is that you are planning for young children. And in doing so, you are supporting the whole child. So some ways that we plan in early childhood include individual activities and lessons, weekly plans, an integrated study plan, which is what you are going to be doing this semester, and that will be your final project. And it doesn't really matter what you are doing out of the above list. However, in most programs, you're doing a mixture of all three of them. You generally will have a weekly plan, and within that weekly plan, you're going to have individual activity plans and lesson plans, and then you're going to have an overarching theme in general or topic of study that you're using, which is the integrated study plan. But it doesn't matter what you're doing out of all of those. Anytime you are planning for young children, you should have a purpose in mind. You should follow developmentally appropriate practice, and what you are doing should be meaningful for children. So as you work through your integrated unit of study, and when you're really talking about your learning experience plans, you really need to pay attention to those things. What is the purpose? What is your goals and objectives? Are you following developmentally appropriate practice? And is this activity meaningful to children? And if you can't answer those questions about that particular activity, you may want to rethink doing that activity. So this week you guys are working on your topic proposal and framework. So you're doing some research around different curriculums out there, and you've done research, on the different curriculums out there last week, and you're going to be using that information to help frame your topic proposal. So as you prepare for your assignment this week, think about how you will be sure to include developmentally appropriate practice and play into your planning. Think about how you will be intentional about supporting young children's learning through your topic of study. Is it meaningful to young children? As always, reach out if you have any questions. Thanks.